Welcome back. This is Stacy with Reads of an Apple, and I'm here to do my final bracket to figure out my best book of 2021. This time we're looking at the subgenres of paranormal, fantasy, and sci-fi romance. I have already done my two other brackets, which you saw earlier in the blog post here, and that was my historical romance and my contemporary romance. So this time we're going to be doing my third and final bracket. Here is the bracket, blank as it is. I've mentioned this in the other videos, but in case this is the first one that you're watching, all of my bracket templates are linked up above in the blog post. I made them in Canva, so they are available there. If you want to use the brackets and the link up above doesn't work for you, or you'd like it in a different format, feel free to reach out to me. All of my contact information, like social medias, are in the bar on the right hand side. Also at the bottom of the blog is my romance calendar that I created, and on the first of each month is a link to contact me, and that'll take you to a Google form that'll go straight to my email. And so feel free to reach out if you would like copies of these templates and you're unable to use them during Canva. So as you can see, I kind of just randomly put them up there. I have already kind of been thinking that I want to slightly change the way that I have them ordered for next year, because I have some bonus books all on one side. So as you can see, there are, like I mentioned, 4 bonus books. So to have a proper bracket without anybody, so to speak, getting like a bye week or like a free advance to the next round, you want to do your brackets in quantities of 8. So I went ahead and did 4 bonus books. A lot of the times, especially this past year, I did a lot of binging of either one genre, one author, one series, and things like that. So sometimes it was really hard to pick a favorite for the month. This way I was able to kind of just write down all the books that I really enjoyed. I looked at all my 5 stars, and then I kind of picked out my favorites from there, and then jotted them all down. And then once I figured out what my first 12 were going to be, I then was able to take 4 other books that I really liked and use them as bonuses, because I still love them too, and it's a very close tie for that month between that one and the one that I chose for the month. Also above I have 3 honorable mentions, and those were just a couple books that when I wrote down my list were in the running to be a bonus book and just were slightly beaten out. So they didn't make the bracket, but they were on my favorites list that I put together. So I wanted to throw out a couple honorable mentions, and you'll see there are some honorable mentions for each of the 3 brackets that I did. So let's go ahead and go over it real quickly, and then we'll get going on filling out my bracket. So we have January versus October, March versus December, May versus bonus book 2, July versus bonus book 4, September versus February, November versus April, bonus book 1 versus June, and bonus book 3 versus August. As you can tell, I kind of was going opposite when I was filling out the brackets. Like I mentioned, next year I think I want to do it slightly different, because all of the bonus books ended up on one side. So I think I at least want to get 2 of the other bonus books over here, and maybe I'll just change out how I kind of lay out my ones. I've been thinking of maybe doing a random number generator or something like that, but we'll figure it out. I have almost a year to figure out how I want to do my brackets. But anyway, I will be doing new ones, so if you're interested and you like this idea, feel free. Depending on how much paranormal, sci-fi, and fantasy I read this upcoming year, I might end up separating those out. But at least for this year, it seemed like I stuck to one of those subgenres a month, so it was easier to get a full bracket combining these 3. So I will close that. Okay, so I have my first 16 contestants already in there, ready to go. I'll be using Photoshop CS5. I got this back in college. I'm sure it's super outdated, but we're just gonna roll with it, and I will just drag and drop and get things just kind of resized and go from there. So let's get to it. Okay, let's scroll over. Okay, so our first one, January versus October. We have The Sea King by C.L. Wilson. This is the second book in her Weather Mages of Mistral series. I actually read the first book in this series, The Winter King, I think. I think it was The Winter King. It's been a while since I've read these. But I read that for the Smart Women Read Romance Patreon exclusive review. I really loved it, so I immediately picked up The Sea King. This one, there are some trigger warnings, so definitely keep an eye out for that. But I really enjoyed this. We have Dillis, and he is the king of their water mages, and it's kind of like an Atlantis society, and they're all matriarchs, and so like magic power is passed from queen to queen. It was a really cool setup. But then we've got Gabriella and then the two other sisters that are princesses in this world. So what happens is there is, in the Winter King, Gabriella's youngest sister, and I can't remember if she's a half-sister or if she's a full-blooded sister or not, but the younger one gets kind of bartered and traded to marry the Winter King, and because he takes over the country that they're, I think it's called Summerlee, if I remember correctly. Good for me, I'm pulling that out of a 12-month gap. So there's this huge battle, and then Dillis's soldiers, I guess, are allowed to stay after the war is over, and they can try to woo anyone. I mean, nothing untoward, but they're allowed to see if there's anybody that might make a match, because they are short on women that they aren't related to on their island nation. Dillis, however, as I think he's a prince because his mother is the queen, he has the choice between the three princesses to see if one of them might be a match. Of the three, Gabriella is the quietest, and nobody knows much about her power or thinks... I can't remember. I know eventually we find out that it's like something about the sun and light, and it's a lot more powerful than expected, but she kind of stays under the radar, especially compared to her other two sisters, and she's definitely more of the quieter, introverted sister. So his advisors and the advisors from his kingdom suggest for him to go after one of the other two sisters, but he is instantly drawn to Gabriella, and the way that he goes about wooing her is just, he doesn't give up, and it's so glorious. These books are very long. They are pretty epic. At some point she ends up being kidnapped, or all three sisters end up being kidnapped, and so that was tough to read. That's where you kind of really need to look into the trigger warnings. There is for sure rape, torture, kidnapping, those kind of things that go on. It was so heart-wrenching to read. I didn't know it was gonna be there, so it kind of made me pause for a second, but the way that Gabrielle found her power and really came to rely on her magic during this moment, but it's really tough. It's really tough to read. I really enjoyed this. I believe I gave it 4.5, maybe 5 stars. I can't wait for the other 2 books. I'm assuming that there's going to be 2 more books in the series for the other 2 sisters. The next one is supposed to be the Jaguar King. In 2020, there was supposed to be kind of more information about it, but then the pandemic happened, and then in March, C.L. Wilson posted on her blog or on her website like a sneak peek prologue or part of the chapter 1 or something like that, and I read that, and it made me even more excited for the Jaguar King. But then she kind of went radio silent. I think she might have had some personal or family or health issues going on too, so the book's been slightly postponed. Like I said, these are also like usually in the 400, 500 range kind of books, so they're super thick. But I saw recently, I think, in the past couple months, she had another update that said she's almost at her word count for what she wanted to be for at this book, which means that then it can be sent to the publisher and editors and kind of go from there. So it sounds like she is making slow progress on the book, but hopefully either in 2022 or early 2023 we'll get the Jaguar King, and I can't wait. Now we have October's book, and this is Magic Bleeds. This is the 4th book in the Kate Daniels series. This one was really crazy. Kate and Curran are just kind of, they officially, I guess, get together in book 3, but for me it felt more like, they were just kind of fooling around in book 3, but in book 4 it felt more like their relationship is actually established, to me at least, in my thoughts. But this was a super fun book. If you know the Kate Daniels series, this is the one where she meets her Aunt Era and fights with her, and she learns more about her family and her father, and learns about blood armor and blood magic. And there was some creepy pandemic stuff in the beginning, because Arrow was known, one of her names was the City Eater, and so she would kind of spread pandemics and things like that. So it was kind of crazy reading about that pandemic stuff, especially in the beginning of the book. But it was super fun. I'm loving the Kate Daniels series. I'm actually in the middle right now of book 9 for the read-along, and we're dealing with Era again, which is super cool. We're dealing with, spoiler alert, her ghost, or her spirit, or her essence, or whatever it is, but it's super fun, and I can't wait I'm excited to finish the series, because I can't wait to see what happens, but I'm also kind of sad it'll be over. But I know there's spin-offs, and Alona Andrews has other series that will keep me entertained, but it's kind of sad that Kate Daniels is almost, or at least for me, is almost come to an end. This one also, technically, Kate Daniels, I would say, is an urban fantasy. There are some of the books that have more romantic elements in them. For me, Magic Bleeds had more romance in it. I know book 3 has a little more romance. Book 8, which I just read, which was Magic Shifts, I felt like was a little bit more, maybe not romance heavy, but relationship heavy, because Kate goes through some very scary, serious medical things, and she almost loses her life, and we just get to see that bond between her and Curran and their little family that they've created. And so I feel like that one is more romancy, because we get to see more development and just explore their relationship more than just her being a kick-ass and fighting all these cool things and using magic. So, as much as I love those, I also kind of, on months where this was the only paranormal-ish book I read, you'll see another Alona Andrews on here, and that's because that's the only thing in these 3 subgenres that would even kind of fit, would be Kate Daniels. So I put Kate Daniels in here so at least I have an open slot. I feel like next year I want to try to be a little more conscious and at least read one of each of my 3 bracket subgenres, so I have something to put in there. Although I know if it's ends up being a 3-star read, I don't want to call it my favorite of the month. But anyway, I digress. So I think as much as I loved Magic Bleeds and as much as I love Kate and Curran, I'm going to give it to The Sea King. It was the first book I read of the year of 2021. It was so good. It was just, I mean, for some people they are a little long. She gets a little drawn out. But I just love her world building. And I really just enjoyed getting swept away. And while it took me a little bit, like I could tell it took me longer to get through it, it didn't feel like I was reading like a 500-page book, you know? So I'm going to give it to The Sea King. Let me get to my covers. Okay. The Sea King. And the covers on these are absolutely gorgeous. Isn't that so pretty? And he's got like a little trident, and I love her dress. Those are so pretty. Avon has some really nice book covers. I really like them. And I like that they took like the first book, The Winter King, really has the feel, but I feel like I love that they gave it almost a historical romance type clinch cover for her fantasy books. She has another fantasy series, I think, called Terran Soul or something like that, which I do want to read, but they are more of the like stereotypical like paranormal fantasy type covers. So I love that with this series they're going the more historical romance clinch cover route. So that's super fun. Okay, so then we've got March versus December. March is A Hunger Like No Other. This is book 1 in Cressley Cole's highly popular Immortals After Dark series. The latest book actually the arcs just came out, and it comes out later this month. That's Monroe. I think that's book 13. This was the first time I read Immortals After Dark. We chose this for the Smart Women Read Romance Patreon exclusive review, and I loved this. I really enjoyed this. I know some people have issues with like the consent, and I don't know, some people have kind of issues with this book, but for me, I didn't. I really enjoyed it. I felt like, almost kind of like The Duke and I, where almost too much is made about the issues of the book, so you go in expecting it to be horrible, and then I read it, and I didn't really feel like he's a little bit of a dick to her. This is Lachlan and Emmeline, like I said, and I felt like he's not very understanding, but he's also thousands of years old and hasn't been in the world for hundreds of years. He was captured by vampires, and he's been tortured for the last however many years, and then he's suddenly out in modern world with like technology and things like that. So I felt like he had to go through some growing as well. And Emmeline, she started out on the weaker side, which I really enjoy. Like, I love like Kate Daniels and our heroines that can just kick butt and take names, but sometimes I like my kick-ass heroines to not necessarily be that way, and to be more softer or stronger in different ways than being able to like be some crazy martial artist kind of a thing. Emmeline is a half Valkyrie, half vampire, so that was really interesting. I definitely need to read more of Immortals After Dark. I read this, and I read the prequel, and that's it. I need to read more. I need to catch up. Now that book 13 is almost out, now's the time to catch up, because it seems like... So the first 12 books were with whatever traditional publisher that she was with, and then there ended up being, and I don't know if that was like the contract ran out or what happened, but starting with Monroe, her newest book, they're going to be indie published moving forward. So she's not being traditionally published anymore. So I don't know if it was, I know there was kind of issues with her getting the rights back, so I don't know if her contract ended and she wanted to write more, and the whatever extension or new contract they had didn't work, or if she decided, let's just leave the contract here and then I'm going to try to get my rights back and then I can continue writing in this series with the same names and stuff. So I don't really know all of what happened, but I do know that people have been waiting a very long time for Monroe to come out. I also love these original covers. Like, I like the newer covers and how they're all very similar, but I definitely want to collect these older, like, artwork style covers because I just think they're absolutely gorgeous. And then for December, we have Walking in a Witchy Wonderland by Juliet Cross. Oh, I love this. This is actually an anthology, but it's 3.5 in the Stay a Spell series. And we get 5 short stories. We get one from Evie and Mateo / Alpha from Wolf Gone Wild. Then we get Isadora, and we get a short story with Isadora and Devraj from Don't Hex and Drive. And then we get, and this one was the longest novella. It took like 70, 80 pages of the book. And this is a novella that's Charlie and, oh my gosh, I just lost his name and it was in my head when I was talking about everybody else. Charlie and JJ? No, it starts with a J. J? Maybe it is just J. J-A-Y. He's the bartender at the Cauldron bar and restaurant that they own. And so that we've seen him in the background and they're best friends, but that's it's an MM. It's the super cute Friends to Lovers. Oh, I loved it. It was so sweet. And I love the way that Juliet Cross writes. Plus, this book had some pretty good steam in it for being 5 short stories or 5 novellas. And then our fourth one is a prequel to the next book that'll be coming out in June, and so that is Gareth, who's a Grimm, and then Lizzie. Oh my gosh, I just read this, and how did I forget? Lizzie or Libby? No, I think it's Lizzie. I might be wrong. I'll have to look it up, and I'll put a little note here on what her name is. But so book 4 comes out in June, and this was like, so we kind of saw their meeting. They met in Witches Get Stitches, which is the 3rd book in the series, which we'll chat about here in a second. And so we see Gareth and Lizzie. I'm just gonna go with Lizzie. We kind of see them working together. So this short story was them actually meeting, and then book 4, Always Practice Safe Hex, is going to be their romance. So I can't wait. It was super cute to kind of get that little tidbit to get you even more excited for their book. And then the last novella, I should have written down, but all of the novellas have super cute, like, witchy plays on Christmas songs too, and so I think like that one was You're a Mean One, Mr. Grimm, or something like that, but they're all super cute too. So the last one is for Nico and Violet, and they are the couple from book 3, and I just said it and I'm already blanking on the name, Witches Get Stitches. And this was my favorite novella of the 5, because we get to see them babysit Evie and Mateo's triplet babies. Oh, it was so cute seeing Evie and Mateo's kids and kind of seeing Violet and Nico get baby fever, and I really loved it. It was my favorite. We got some good steam between Nico and Violet, and I just love seeing Evie and Mateo's babies, and then Mateo kept calling to bothering them, because this was like the first time that they really were left, the kiddos were left with like babysitters. So that was super funny. And Mateo and Alpha, they have to go all out and go all alpha mode for their children, and it was just so cute. I loved it. I loved all of them. They were all super good, and the only one that wasn't really steamy was the 4th one with Libby and Libby. See, I stopped thinking too hard about it, and then her name popped in. So Libby and Gareth. But because it was like their first meeting, although there was really good sexual tension between them. And then Gareth, I guess, is like having visions or just imaginations of doing sexy things with Livy and accidentally kind of teleports those visions into her brain. So I'm excited to kind of see what happens in that book. I can't wait. Is it June already? And it comes out on, I think, June 6th, which is the day before my birthday. So if I know what I'll be doing for my birthday, reading the next Juliet Croft book, and I can't wait. Now, to choose between the two, this is a really hard choice for me. But I think I'm going to slightly have to go for A Hunger Like No Other, just because it isn't an anthology, even though I loved the anthology. But it was also the start to Immortals After Dark, and if this is the starting point and it only gets better than there, I know I'm gonna be blown away. Part of the reason why I haven't started this series before is when these started coming out, I was reading other paranormal and urban fantasy series at the time, and then when I finally got to the point where I might start picking them up, it was already so many books into the series that I went for shorter series or newer series that I could get caught up on easier. But I definitely need to read more in Immortals After Dark. One of my hopes for this year is to read at least the next few books, if not get completely caught up. But we'll see. I try not to give myself too strict of TBRs, but I feel like if I need a paranormal book when I'm near the end of the month, maybe I might put her and like a spinner wheel as an option to figure out what I want to read. And I feel like a lot of her books will very easily be 4 or 5 stars. I've read a lot of Cressley Cole's historical stuff and absolutely love them. And I read them like back in high school, so which is crazy because I knew her as a historical author before I even knew about Immortals After Dark. So yeah, we will get this. We're gonna do A Hunger Like No Other, like I said. Oh, see, look at that. And you see like the indentations. Isn't this artwork gorgeous? And it's blurbed by Sherilyn Kenyon, which is another popular early to mid 2000s paranormal author that I did not read, but I definitely want to because her books sound really good, and she it sounds like she has some kind of unique things as well that I'm super interested in. Okay, so there we are. We got our first 2 brackets done, and we will scroll over. So we've got May versus Bonus Book 2. So for May, it is A Kiss for Solstice. This is by Elizabeth Ann Darren? Let's look. Let's pull it up. Alan Dean. I knew it was hyphenated. So I found this book when I was doing the Heaving Bosoms Reading Embrace, and she is an HB author, so she's a fan of the show, and she had posted, she was listed on the Reading Embrace spreadsheet as having a book because they like to have one of their prompts always be an HB author, which is an author that is a listener of Heaving Bosoms, which is super fun because a lot of them are indie authors. And so I was really intrigued, and I ended up not reading this book. I started Victoria Aveline's Cloclanian series instead and counted that for my HB author, but I added this, but I got this because the ebook was on sale for like 0 or 99 cents or something super cheap, so I got the ebook. And it took me forever to read it. It took me almost a year to finally read it. This book blew me away. It says on it that it is book 1 in the Midnight Sun Supernatural series. No other books have been written by Elizabeth Allen Dean since this book. I don't know if this was just a one-time thing and she just didn't have time to write anymore, or she wasn't feeling it, or I don't know what happened. I kind of tried to stalk her on social medias, and she didn't really have much that I could find. I should probably look again and see if she's updated anything. There is a new cover on Amazon I saw that's now like a close-up of lips that's really weird looking, but I love this cover. This was the cover when I first purchased it, it had. So Zelda is a super powerful witch. I believe this is set in Alaska. It's either Alaska or Canada, but it's up north. And there are issues. So her father married this witch, and I believe it's her stepmother, and then she kind of chased her father away, and he abandoned, I think she has one sister. She either has one or two sisters. But so she's kind of, her stepmother is running the clan, and she kind of feels, but her stepmother is not a very nice person, and they're always kind of keeping tabs on her, because if anybody can challenge her for the right to rule there, which is coven, not clan. I don't know why I keep saying clan. It's the Scottish brain, the Scottish in me, or the Scottish historical romance reader in me. I don't think I have much Scottish blood, but anyway. And so they kind of keep tabs on her wherever she is, and she's trying to figure out a way that, at first, just to kind of live her life normally without kind of being under her thumb. And then she ends up going to a fight, and I don't remember what happens, but so there's werewolves that are like beholden to her stepmother, and they host this like boxing fight, and there we meet Dax. He's the hero, and he's just a normal guy. I want to say he was like a cop or a soldier or something like that, and he fights on the side for money, and he wins this fight, and his brother meets Zelda's brother, and then they want to go hang out, and he doesn't really want to, and Zelda doesn't, so they don't really meet, but they're in like the same grouping of people. Not that it's very many people, but it's just after the fight, so there's a lot of people milling around, so it's not like they're like standing next to each other. It's kind of like they're standing, and then their respective siblings are in between them, but neither of them are really looking at each other. But anyway, so something happens. I think Dax goes to get... Okay, I think they have a third sister, and the stepmother has, like, kidnapped her-ish, and is torturing her to kind of keep Zelda under her power, and that's partly why Zelda hasn't challenged her for rule of the coven, is because she's kidnapped and is probably torturing her sister. So we get... Dax goes to collect his winnings from the bout and sees her sister, and not knowing that it's her sister, and tries to rescue her. So the werewolves walk in, rescue fails, he doesn't get his winnings, and they end up killing him in the woods. So Zelda, I can't remember how she finds him, but she ends up finding him and resurrecting him. Oh, because she finds out that he might have saw her sister or something like that. So she wants to talk to him and see what he saw and kind of glean any information that she can. Well, when she resurrects him, he was attacked by werewolves. So the werewolf virus or whatever it is in this system, or in this world, kicks in, and he turns into a werewolf. So he's like fully resurrected, not a ghoul, not a ghost, not a zombie, nothing like that. And then they kind of have to hide out for a little bit to figure out what's going on. And then I can't remember if it's like a mating bond or just a really strong connection between them. But then it's kind of weird because they've got this connection between them because she resurrected him, but he also kind of feels a mating bond for her. So they don't want to get them crossed up, and they kind of there's tension between them on, well, is it just because this bond is there, or is it because he actually likes me, kind of a thing. I really enjoyed it. It was really, really interesting, and I want more. I want her friend, I want her sister, and I think I think she has two sisters, or it's her sister and her best friend. I don't know. I want more in the series. I want more from Elizabeth Allen Dean. I loved her unique take on werewolves and witches, and it was just so interesting. And it sucked me in, and I couldn't put it down. And I absolutely loved it. If you're looking for an indie, although I do want more, and there is no more. So that is the one warning. But definitely pick it up if you want to look for an indie paranormal author with a unique take on witches and werewolves and that kind of stuff. But like I said, it will probably leave you wanting more, and that's the only downside. For bonus book 2, I had a really hard time choosing between any of the books in the Court of the Underworld by Alessa Thorne. I found this in February for Pharaoh Feb, which is Fantasy Romance February. A lot of these books you'll see I picked up or I found the author or finally read the author because of Pharaoh Feb, and that's kind of partly why I've shifted to more fantasy romance over paranormal romance, partly because of that. But so it was really hard to choose between the ones that I've read. I do have, I think, 3 more books in this series to finish. This is the Court of the Underworld, and they are all Hades and his like monsters and gods that are under him. And it's really interesting because they have, it's like a city and it's like real day, but they still have magic powers. The first book is Asterion, and I really liked that one. The second book was, oh my gosh, I can't remember what the second book was. The second book might have been Hades. I don't know. I'll put what book 2 is here. But then the third book is Medusa. Now if you know me at all, I do not like snakes. I can't handle snakes. I can't stand thinking about snakes. Snakes, just even now, I'm getting shivers up and down my spine because I just cannot handle snakes. So even though I really enjoy Medusa's mythology, I don't like thinking about her because she has snakes as her hair. But oh my gosh, this book blew me away from get-go. So this book is about Medusa and Perseus, and they get their HEA. Medusa is in this world like Hades for his company or corporation. She's like the head tech person, and so she's kind of nerdy, and because of the different curses she can put on people and the snakes in her hair, she does have normal hair, but there's like snakes in her normal hair because they do have some sort of type of cloaking magic, but she doesn't have completely cloaking magic, and she has like patches of scales on her skin too, which is super cool, which I like that they didn't amp up the snake stuff with her. Although I will have to say, when her and Perseus get it on, Perseus really likes her hair snakes to bite him, and that was the one part where I was just like, nope, skip. But otherwise, I didn't mind him at all. So Medusa is a romance reader, and she's like slightly nerdy because she's all techie and she plays video games, and she is in her apartment, or her like penthouse or whatever her living situation is, and she's on like the top floor, and Perseus is tasked to steal something by like the big bad that's running throughout the series. And when he comes in, she is masturbating on her couch, and he just cannot stop himself from looking, and he is partially blind, and so he has trouble seeing, so that was really cool to see as well, or cool to read as well. And he sees her as like, I think it was golden light, and he's just so drawn to her, and then they end up and then he ends up stealing it, and it was something super important and personal to her, not just like an object of power, and then he helps kind of getting it back, and then I think he has a younger sister that becomes friends with Medusa, and I love this. When I started this series, I read the first 4 books. So, yeah, I think it was Hades is book number 2. So we had Asterion, Hades, Medusa, and Hermes. And then we've got Thanatos. And I can't remember the other 2, but the other 2 are his minor gods as well. That are Cheros? Oh my gosh. I'm going to look it up real quick. And then there's a spin-off series that she just actually finished writing called The Gods of the Duat. And that is Egyptian gods. And there's 3 of those. And it's Thoth or Toth, however you say it. I know the 3rd one and the final one is Anubis. And then there's also Set. So that's a trilogy. And then I think I saw in her newsletter she's going to expand her gods universe. And I think she's doing Roman goddesses or something like that. I think it was Roman goddesses, but she's doing goddesses instead of just gods this time. So that was super exciting. Oh, and see, and I pulled it up and I wrote it down wrong. Medusa is book 2 and Hades is book 3. Then we've got Hermes, Thanatos, Charon, and Erebus. That was the one I couldn't think of. So yeah, that's super fun. I need to read the last 3. If I don't get to them before February, I definitely want to try to at least pick up 1 or 2 in February and get through the rest of this series, and then I can start her Egyptian God series, The Gods of the Duat. And I'm so excited. And I was so surprised. It was hard to choose between Medusa and Hades. Hades is one of my honorable mentions up there because I really love the way that she retold Hades. But I had to give it to Medusa because it surprised me so much, and I was nervous going in that I wasn't going to like it very much just because I don't like snakes and I wasn't sure how much it was going to be played up. But I was so pleasantly surprised. But as much as I loved it, and as much as I love Medusa, I gotta give it to A Kiss for Solstice because it blew me away, and I am just craving more from her. And I definitely need to see if she has any socials or anything now. But if you're, and I feel another thing I should mention is the Alexa Thorns are a little bit on the shorter side. So if you're looking at, I don't know if they're quite novella lengths, but I think they're in the like 200 page range or low 300s. So they were definitely quick reads. So if you're looking for something shorter with mythology kind of retellings, I really enjoyed them. And I really enjoyed Alessa Thorne. Since then, she's written the Fae series as well, which I really want to read. And then she also has forayed into some dark romance that she's posted quotes of that are super interesting, but I haven't tried yet. But I have them, I know, and most of them are, I think, on Kindle Unlimited as well. But A Kiss for Solstice had to win it. So moving on, our last bracket on this top row is July versus bonus book 4. So for July, I did the new release. It came out either at the end of June or in July. It's Witches Get Stitches by Juliet Cross. Like I mentioned earlier, this is book 3 in the Stay a Spell series, and this is Nico and Violet. Violet is a tattoo artist, and she's opening her own tattoo shop. Nico is a werewolf, and he's actually cousins to Mateo, which is the hero in book 1, Wolf Gone Wild. And this is like a fated mates thing, and we find out that they met, I don't know if it was months or years before, and they had a super steamy rendezvous, and then she kind of ran away before they could, I think he went down on her, or he like fingered her. She definitely reached climax, and then she kind of, something happened, and then she left him, kind of wanting more. And then, but he also kind of recognized that she was his fated mate, so to speak, or that she was his one. And then he kind of tracked her down and followed her to New Orleans, where the series is based. I love this. So what happens is she is working on a special tattoo to help most werewolves control their more aggressive nature, because they're very heavily ostracized and prejudiced against, when for the most part they're normal people, but sometimes the werewolf nature gets a little more aggressive and it's hard to control their feelings and their actions and things. So she's working on creating a magic infused tattoo to help allow werewolves to live more normally. And it was just so cool. But when she's working on this, a former like werewolf gang that Nico was a part of comes to town and kind of kidnaps her because they want the tattoo, and she's just like, I haven't figured it out yet. So then Nico goes crazy, but I love it. We get to see lots of Fred, because Fred is technically Violet's in here, and Fred is the chicken. And he wears his little bow ties, and she paints his nails, and it's so much fun. I absolutely love Juliet Cross. I love the Stay a Spell series. It's such a good blend of like contemporary rom-com and paranormal. So if you're nervous about getting into like the darker paranormals, I feel like this is a really good series to start with, especially if you enjoy contemporary and rom-com romances. I just love them. The covers are absolutely gorgeous. Her artist does such good work, and all of the little designs like relate to it. Oh, it was just so good. Violet is also a tarot card reader, so that was super fun since I've been working on getting my practicing and my knowledge better in tarot this past year as well. So that was really cool to kind of be like, oh yeah, I know this, oh yeah. So that was super fun anyway, and I love Juliet Cross. And I'm so excited. I had won books 1 and 2 autographed in a giveaway that Jessin did because Jessin is Jessin Reads Romance on YouTube. She's also Juliet Cross's niece, and those two together host the Smart Women Read Romance podcast, which I'm sure if you follow my blog and have read up most of my reviews, I talk about them a lot. They're my favorite podcasts. They're 2 of my favorite people to listen to. But anyway, I won the first 2 books signed. So then Juliet in like November or December was offering signed books that she was going to ship come the new year. So, and I think I saw that she was going to get ready to ship them soon. But so I had to get Witches Get Stitches. Even though I already own it in paperback, I had to get a signed copy. And then next time she does it, I'll get signed copies of, I'm sure, all the other books, so that I'll have my normal set and then my signed set. But I'm super excited to get that and get another signed book from her. Although this one I bought, but that's okay. And I think she said she was gonna be sending a book, like stickers or bookmarks and a little fun flag in with all of them too. So I can't wait to get that and get my little flag box as well. So for bonus book 4, I chose Wildest Dreams by Kristen Ashley. This is book 1 in her Fantasyland series, and holy cow, this book was so crazy in the world building. Now I first heard, I'd seen these books before, and I'd seen the covers, but I never really looked into them too much because I knew Kristen Ashley did like motorcycle romances, and so that's not really my jam, so I didn't really look too much into her other genre romances. And then Smart Women Read Romance podcast did an episode on book 2, which I think is called Golden Dynasty. And I was super intrigued by it, and it sounds really good, and I definitely want to at least read the next book in the series. It sounds like that's most everybody's who read the series favorite book, or at least the first few books in it. I think there's 6 books in the series. But in this one, so the way it is there's like our normal world, and then there's a parallel universe that's more fantastical, and magic still exists and all these things. And there's a super powerful witch in our world. And we have Finny, and she lost her parents young. They were kind of adventurers, always on the go, and they were fairly well off. And so she's inherited a bunch of money. And so she's gone on all these adventures and things, and then she finds out, hey, I can do this thing where I can live in a different parallel universe for a year. And basically what happens is she switches, like her essence is switched with her twin in that other world. So the other person agrees and she switches. Come to find out, she's a princess, and they get switched right before she's to get married to like a barbarian prince. And it was just so interesting and his name was Frey, and he kind of just ditches her, but because she's used to kind of traveling and living out of a suitcase and adapting well wherever she goes, the way that she just kind of is like, well, this sucks, but now I'm in this little hunting cottage by myself in the middle of the woods, but I know that there's a town nearby, and she makes the best of it, and she just has this really good go-to attitude, and I loved how, like, he had his concerns, but when Frey comes back after hearing her befriending the townspeople and how she's doing, and he comes back to kind of check on her, and he can just tell that she's changed, and he doesn't quite know why or how, but he can tell that she's changed. One thing that also comes up is that Finney's twin in this world is, I think, a lesbian. I don't know if she's strictly lesbian or if she's more bi, but she definitely prefers women lovers, and so that was a contention for Frey. but our Finney, our heroine, she is very much into Frey, and I don't know, I guess she does say that she's not into women, so I guess she is straight, but I don't know, I really liked it. They both kind of frustrated me at sometimes because they were hiding things, but I also knew that they both kind of knew that things weren't quite as they seemed, and he did kind of figure it out pretty early that she wasn't from this world, not just that she's changed. But it was really cute because, and he didn't tell her he knew for a very long time, but he also kept it to himself because he was just so intrigued and amazed and amused by how she was able to manage to adapt to this world, knowing none of the customs or history or anything like that. But I really enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward to reading the next book in the series, and I definitely want to pick it up soon. I really enjoyed just the way that the magic worked, and I definitely want to read more, if nothing else, than at least the next book. And as much as I loved Wildest Dreams, I gotta give it to Witches Get Stitches. It's the Juliet Cross Book of the Year, even though she also released Walking in a Witchy Wonderland, but this was a full-length novel, and it was just so good. Nico and Violet are, I mean, I don't know. I feel like every time I read a new book from her, it's like my new favorite in the series. I kind of want to reread Wolf Gone Wild though, because it's been a while since I've reread that. But I feel like I think I like Mateo a little bit more than Nico. Not that Nico is bad, but I think I just like Alpha and Mateo, and their dynamic is just so fun. So I gotta say, like, in the werewolf list, Mateo and Alpha are 1, and Nico's like a 1.25 or something like that. But anyway, Witches Get Stitches wins. We are halfway through round 1, so let us move on. Trying not to ramble on too much, but so it goes. As you can tell, historical, my video is super long, and this one's probably going to be on the longer end too, because sci-fi, fantasy, and paranormal own more of my heart and my enjoyment of romance than contemporary. I haven't really been a big contemporary reader till this past year, and I found a lot of really new authors and books that I really loved, but my love for it isn't quite as high in like my bar chart of love for subgenres. It's not quite as high, but it's getting up there as historical and then these guys. So we will just move on, and I will stop blabbering on about other things. So we've got September, which is Magic Bites. This is book 1 in the Kate Daniels series. Now this one doesn't have very much romance, but this book started it all. People kind of mentioned that the first books are rough. I did not feel that, and maybe because I read a lot of similar type of urban fantasies like this back when they were releasing, so it felt more nostalgic to me, and I didn't really have too many issues getting into it at all. But I it drew me in. I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I love the way the world was introduced. I mentioned this in a lot of my reviews of Kate Daniels, but the way that every word that Alona Andrews writes builds their universe and their world is just so magical and mind-blowing that every sentence just adds something more to the world and doesn't take away from anything that's already been created in it. It's just, I love the way it starts. I love the meeting between Kate and Curran. Just, here, kitty. And then out comes this primordial lion, half man, half, he's in his, like, beast form kind of thing, and he comes crawling out of the shadows, and she's just like, oh shit, I shouldn't have said that. But it was so great. I really loved it, and it kicked off my Kate Daniels journey. I'm so glad that Steph, Heather, and Megan started the read-along and gave me that extra push I needed to start the series, because I've been wanting to read it. But it's 10 books plus a bunch of novellas, and that's a little bit daunting. But they broke it down into a couple books and maybe 1 or 2 novellas a month, and that made it seem more doable to me. And I think definitely if I want to pick up another long-running paranormal, or even just any long-running series, I want to kind of do a similar thing where I read like 1 to 2 books a month, and then space it out. And yeah, it'll take a while to get through it, but then, I don't know, like, I get so sucked into it, and so I don't get the chance to get bored with it, because I read my couple of assigned books, and then I move on to something else until it's time to read the next 2 the next month. And so, like, by that point, I'm ready to jump back in the world, and I feel like had I binged them all in a row, maybe it would have been a little bit repetitive, or maybe I would have gotten a little bit bored or something, just binging so much in a row. But I really loved it. If you haven't tried Kate Daniels and you're in the mood for an urban fantasy, definitely check it out. I love Alona Andrews. They're a husband and wife writing duo. Gordon is the husband and Alona is the wife, and it's so good. It's so good. I want to get through their backlist, and I can't wait to read everything that they write. It's really good. Now, February's book is Radiance by Grace Draven. This was the first time I read Grace Draven. I picked this up because this is February. This was for Fantasy Romance February, Farewell Feb. And this book started my Grace Draven obsession. This book is so gorgeous. It's slow burn. It's fantastical. We get different, as you can tell from the picture, we've got Eldiko, who's a human, and Brishan, who I can't remember what his species is, but he's kind of more like a fae magic species. And they both think each other's species are ugly, but they become friends to get through the marriage, because they're both kind of like second sons or cousins, so they're both in the royal family, but they're not like important enough to get, like, they're important enough to be put into an arranged marriage, but they're not important enough that they'll be married because they're getting married off to a species that they think is ugly, and they don't really want, like, nobody else would be like the queen is gonna send her niece to go marry him, not her own daughter, because she doesn't want her daughter to marry this other species, kind of a thing, if that makes sense. But the way that they just fell in love. This is book 1 in the Wraith King series. I've read this, I've read Eidolon, and I've read the Ippos King, which is book 3. I can't wait for more. I have read so much of Grace Draven. I've read all of the novellas in this series. I'm completely caught up in Wraith King. I've read a lot of her other smaller books in smaller series. I have her newer, like, I don't know if they're traditionally published or not, but it's like Dragon Unbound, and there's a Phoenix one, and I think there's 2 or 3 books out in that I haven't read, and I need to read Masters of Crows, and then there's like a Gaslight steampunky kind of romance that I haven't read yet. That's 1 book and then a couple of novellas. But I think that's it I have left from her backlist. I am obsessed with Grace Draven. The way that she writes just completely sucks me in. It just fits my reading taste to a T. It's got really good emotional connection. We've got amazing world building. We've got really good sexual tension and emotional tension, and just the theme is so good. And I just get swept away every time I pick up one of her books. It was a really hard choice, but I almost put A Wilderness of Glass on the bracket too. It's not in my honorable mentions, but it's a novella in this Wraith King series. I want to say it's like 2.5 or 2.7 or something like that. And it's a human and like a mermaid or merman, merfish kind of dude. And it was so mad. I never thought that I'd want to do it with a mermaid type dude, but it was just so magical, and it was a novella, and it's completely swept me away. So just imagine what her full-length books are like. I want to reread Radiance. I don't know when, but I definitely want to reread Radiance, because it was just so gorgeous, and it ends, and then to see them grow in book 2, Eidolon, and just the love that they've found with each other, and just the sense of home that they've created for each other, where they never really felt like they were home beforehand, and they've created their own family. It just is so touching, and I love this book. If you like fantasy romance and you haven't read Grace Draven, please pick up Radiance. It is so good. It is a slow burn, but they become friends, and it is one of the most amazing friends to lovers I have ever read. It just, it pulls on all of my heartstrings, and I love it. And I love Magic Bites, because it started me on the Kate Daniels. But I just have to give it to Radiance, because and look at this. Whoever Grace Draven does, that does the artwork for her books and her novellas and stuff, is so amazing. I have all of her books in paperback that I can, if nothing else, because of the artwork. They are just so gorgeous. I haven't read Master of Crows, and I think I mentioned that earlier, but I saw that here. And it is set in the same, universe as Wraith Kings, but we aren't dealing with the actual Wraith Kings. And I know that there's supposed to be, I think, 3 or 4 more books in the Wraith Kings, because it's not till, I think, book 2 that Brishan becomes a Wraith King, and then there's, I think it's 5 total of them. Maybe it's only 4. But book 2 is his neighbor who's a human, and he's one of the Wraith Kings. And then I think there's 2 or 3 others. So we need to get those books. But I haven't really looked too much about when they're gonna come out, but I can't wait. Book 2 I still don't think is even, or book 3, which is the Ithos King, I don't think is even available in paperback. Because I have Radiance and Eidolon. But it's been a while since I checked. But I definitely need to look into that. But anyway, so Radiance 1, we are moving on. We have November versus April. For November, we have another Grace Draven. This is a novella called The Undying King. It's not a part of the series. And this novella was so good. She writes novellas really good. Really, really well. I didn't feel shorted in story. I didn't feel shorted in theme. I didn't feel shorted in the emotional connection. I mean, I was sad it was over, because I wanted to read more, because I love just living in these worlds that she creates. But the story didn't feel incomplete, or like there could have been more told. And I absolutely loved it. So we have Imogen, and she has, think Rogue from X-Men. She has a magical kind of power that when she touches somebody skin to skin, they die. When Rogue has to suck their life force or whatever, I think, but she touches them and they die. And her adoptive mother is passing away, and she had helped out Sedeta, and he is known as the Undying King. He was king of a country, and then he became immortal. He drank like from a spring or a fountain or something kind of like that, and became immortal. And so he's had many names, but he is undying. And her adoptive mother had helped him out at some point, and he had given her like a key or a map or a guide, so if she ever needed anything, she would be able to find him, and he could repay the favor, because she helped save him when he was attacked. And I mean, they thought that they killed him, but because he's immortal, it was a very slow process for him to become whole again, and she took care of them because she's a healer witch. So when she passes, she gives Imogen this guide, and she says, I want you to go to him, because if anybody can help remove this curse or figure out why you have this curse, it is him. And so she shows up, and it's really crazy the way that it works, and there's people tracking her down, because we find out she's actually the missing princess from a neighboring kingdom, and they're trying to track her down so that they can follow with a marriage contract that was made before she went missing, and it's all this like political stuff, but that's not what matters. What matters is when she gets to Sedata, the way that they connect is so beautiful, because he is more than willing to let her touch him as much as she wants, because he just is tired of living alone in his immortal life, and he's ready to pass on. And she partly feels bad, but is more than willing to give him everything of her power, so hopefully it will drain from her. But the way that they connect, and she is obviously a virgin because she can't touch anybody skin to skin, and the way that they, she's like, I'm not stupid, I've seen people in town, I've read books or scrolls or whatever it is. Like, she's not naive in the stereotypical fantasy virgin sense, which was fun, but she is still naive in the act, because she doesn't know the experiences and the physical feelings and things like that. But I just loved the way that they connected, and he has like ghosts that run his castle, and so like they'll suddenly like change where the stairs are, where hallways lead to, and they'll try to keep you in one spot kind of a thing. And they're also like ghostly butlers, and it was just super fun. I really loved it. I know there was an anthology re-released, or not re-released, but released recently, like Fire and Frost or something like that, and I heard that she expanded or re-edited or added something to The Undying King, and it's in that anthology. I have it on my Kindle, I believe, because I pre-ordered it when I saw Grace Draven was doing an anthology, because I was like, I want it, it's Grace Draven, and if it's only an ebook version, I'll take the ebook version kind of a thing. And I didn't really look at it too much to see what she wrote, because I'm going to read it no matter what, because I love Grace Draven. But I saw somebody mention that it was like an expanded version of The Undying King, and because I read it so recently, I definitely want to try to pick it up and see what exactly has changed with it and what she's added to it. Because I think, I don't know, I'm just really intrigued to see what she changed. So anyway, now that we're done rambling about Grace Draven for forever, my April book I chose was the Aliens Ransom. This is the first in the Drixonian Warrior series, and this is by Ella Maven. I picked this up because it was touted as a motorcycle alien romance, or an MC club kind of a thing. And the MC vibes, outside of them riding like weird space motorcycles, I didn't really get the MC club vibe, but I was intrigued enough by it to pick it up, even though I don't like MC clubs. I thought, okay, maybe it's aliens, so maybe they'll at least not have like the language and the issues with putting down women as much, because it is still an alien and a human kind of a thing. And I actually really enjoyed it. I want to read more in the series for sure, and I was really intrigued by this. So we have Frankie, stereotypical sci-fi romance. Her and a bunch of other young women are kidnapped, and they are brought to this other planet, and Daz attacks the people that kidnapped them, and is tasked with taking the cargo and bringing it to people who are on his planet to have his brother kidnapped, and kind of ran them out. So the Drixonians used to kind of run their portion of the world. I don't know if it's a continent or a city. I know it's at least that city, but they used to be like the head honchos, and then they were run out of their head city kind of a thing, and this other like faction of their race or a different race has kind of taken over. But they've kidnapped Daz's brother, and so he's gonna do this, and hopefully he'll get his brother back, but we all know it's a trick. But it was super intriguing, and what ends up happening is Daz and Frankie get separated from the rest of the women and the other aliens that are in his like little grouping, and then they kind of have to do survivalist in the wilderness kind of a thing. So it was super interesting. I hadn't read, like, there was a lot of like stereotypical sci-fi alien romance tropes, but it was just unique enough to keep me really entertained, and I'm certainly intrigued, and I'm very interested to see how the next book goes, because we do meet his brother, because he and Frankie end up getting kidnapped by the same people, because it's a trap, and they're put in a cell. Well, he's put in a cell next to them, and then Frankie is put in a cell with his brother, and then they like inject them or do something magical or something, and it basically makes it so that Daz's brother really, like, for them to both be left alone by the prisoner people, or the prison people, that he has to basically have sex with her and try to impregnate her, but he knows that Frankie is Daz's mate kind of a thing. I can't, maybe it is mate, but they have a word for it, and he fights against it, and it's, I think she ends up being pregnant, or somebody else ends up being pregnant, but so they escape, and then Daz's brother ends up staying behind because he wants to rescue one of the women that he was forced to breed with. Maybe she's the one that's pregnant. I don't know. Somebody was pregnant at the end of the book. I can't remember too much. But so I think his book was book number 2. I just haven't had a chance to pick it up yet, because when I've been in the mood for sci-fi romance, I've been continuing some other series that I've already read. But I definitely want to read more. I really enjoyed it. However, as you can tell, I am a Grace Draven stan, and The Undying King was just so good. It is one of the best novellas I've ever read across all genres. It was just so well done. And once again, look at this artwork. Oh, it is so gorgeous. Oh, and this one, even though it is a novella, I think was in paperback. And I either ordered it or I added it to my wish list. I can't remember. I have a box of books that I want to do a book haul video for, but that I got for like Christmas and with my gift cards from Christmas. So it might be in there, but I can't remember. But yeah. Oh. Next turn we'll have Grace versus Grace. Alright, almost done. Let's move on. Last 2 brackets. So, for bonus book number 1, we have Tempting Ozed by Victoria Aveline. This is book 4 in her Cleclanian series. Book 3 and 4 both came out this year. At the beginning of book 1, Choosing Theo, at the end, so once again, women are kidnapped. They land on this planet where the humans and these people on this planet started from the same, like, being that evolved. So there is like interracial breeding. It is acceptable, and they find out, and they have a really hard time having babies. So the way that this society is really, I don't really want to get into it too much because I've already been talking a lot here, and I don't want to discount this book, but check out my reviews for Victoria Aveline. She's in my little word cloud here on the sidebar. And in the first review I have of her on my blog, I kind of went into the setup of the world, and I feel like it'd just be easier to go read that. But a quick overview is basically women have the power because men outnumber the women astronomically. So what happens is they kind of have to men go through husbandry school is what they call it, so they learn how to be a good husband and take care of the wife and earn enough money to be able to vie for a wife. And then there's like contracts, and they're together for like 6 or 8 months or something like that, and then they can decide if they want to extend the contract or not, and then they have to make sure that they're breeding compatible. So the plan is to get them pregnant, and then once the baby is had, then the husband gets the baby, and then the mom will decide either to stay with them or go off and marry somebody else, kind of a thing. There are like true mates, fated mates in this, but they haven't been seen for a very long time. Obviously, all of these books, the true mate stuff starts kicking in with these human women, and it's super fun. But at the end of the first book, we find out that, because it's just the one human that we see in the first book, and then we find out that there were other women, and that somehow she escaped, or her pod didn't get to where all the other women were going, and there's a secret underground bunker where they're experimenting on like the native peoples of this land and humans to try to figure out if they are breedable and they can help the population. So it's done with a good plan in mind, but it's not done in a positive way, kind of a thing. And so they end up rescuing these women, and a couple of them run off into the woods. Book 3, Saving Baracco, is the first one of the girls that ran off into the woods, and then this is the other girl that ran off. This one is Alejandra, and then we have Ozed. And Ozed is actually the brother to Theo in book 1 and then book 2, which I don't remember, but his name. And then Baracco is a different species, and he was book 3. As I'm recording this, it is Thursday, January 13th, so I'm recording this last minute, but yesterday, Wednesday, January 12th, the 5th book just came out, and that's using Feho, and we're going back to the girls that were originally rescued, that have been living in the main city. So that's super fun. I'm planning on reading it this weekend for the Romance Takeover Readathon. But anyway, back to Tempting Ozed. So Ozed is tasked with finding the other girl that ran away in the woods. And what happens is they end up kind of crossing over into the territory of another, I don't know, I'm going to call them countries, though they're not really countries, but they have like borders that you're not supposed to cross without rules and kind of like that. So they're kind of like a country setup, but they don't call them countries. They're more cities. But so they cross over into there, and things end up happening, and then they end up kind of getting stuck there until deals can be made between the respective leaders of both cities. However, to keep them from getting separated from each other, they decide that they're going to act like Alejandra and Ozed are mates. Even though we find out they are, but they aren't at this point in time. And it's just... it was so good. I gave it 5 stars. I love Victoria Aveling's mind. She is, like I mentioned before, the first author I read as an HB author, and I read Choosing Theo, and I have not I get so excited. I get her newsletters, I follow her on socials, and I am just so excited to read whatever she writes next, whether it's sci-fi or not. But I know we still have quite a few girls to get through in the Clicklanian series, and I can't wait to read more. I can't freaking wait. And if I remember correctly, Feho is like a space pirate kind of a dude, or like a privateer, and so I'm like super excited because I think he's one of the ones that has a spaceship. Oh, I can't wait. I can't freaking wait. I'm so excited. Okay, and then our other book, which is for June, is Aubin. This is book 5 in the Intergalactic Soulmates series. Our hero is Aubin, and then our heroine is Sophie. So I read this for I started this series during the Kindle Clear Out Readathon, and at that point it was only the first 3 books were out, and they were kind of written as a trilogy, and it kind of ended because it was the 3 girlfriends and their alien mates. So in this world there's DNA matching, And now that Earth has been incorporated into like the universe's governing system or mapping, or I don't know, they've like been accepted into the rest of the universe, and you can have alien contact and things like that now. There is a DNA matching system that you can go in and give your DNA, and it helps you find your perfect mate. So that's a whole thing here. So on this one book, so then I didn't notice for a couple of months, but then she came back and she wrote 3 more books in the series. So this is like the second trilogy in the Intergalactic Soulmates books. So this is book 5. So Aubin is our alien, and then Sophie is a YouTuber, and she did like travel vlogging and things like that with her ex-fiance. And what happened is they were kind of like YouTube's travel darling, and everybody loved watching them do the couple-y things, and they were known for being like having such a great relationship, and they're so perfect, and look at all the amazing travel things they do together kind of stuff. And then they decide for fun, he pushes her for fun to, let's go get the DNA test, because how perfect would it be for us to be perfect for each other? So he gets his test results back, and he doesn't get, his like results are like null and void or something like that, like they don't pop up with anything. And then Sophie gets hers back, and she gets told that Aubin is her fated mate, and her ex-fiance at this point basically trashes her, leaves her in ruins, and what he did to her was just so horrible. And then he kind of turned it around and made it her fault. She's like, I didn't even want to get the test in the first place because I knew this might be a possibility. But it was just, it really touched me, and it was nice to kind of see her find herself again. And she has some friends that she does, and they end up doing she ends up doing travel vlogging as like an alien's wife. So like she does like universe YouTube. So that was super fun. But I really enjoyed it. It was like super, I just loved it. And and Aubin was like super far away, so it was gonna take him like 2 weeks to get to her. So they were talking through like text message, email kind of things, and then they ended up sending videos to each other, like video messaging, and it was just really sweet. And I loved how Aubin was so nervous, and she was just so like, I don't want to do this, like I just broke up with someone and it was a horrible breakup kind of thing, I don't know if I'm ready to be in a relationship with someone else. I just really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed the series Annabelle Rex. I haven't seen if she's released any other books in it, but I'm definitely intrigued, because the DNA matching thing I think is a fun, different kind of trope to add into the alien sci-fi romance genre. And even though I really loved Aubin, and I loved that whole series, I gotta give it to Tempting Ozed. Because Victoria Aveline is just, I don't know, Grace Draven is my new fantasy queen for 2021, and Victoria Aveline has been like my sci-fi queen for the past couple of years. I just love her books, and they are on the longer end, and her covers, look at these covers, are so gorgeous, and a lot of them have really cool alien landscapes on the back of them too. I have all of them in paperback that are out in paperback, and they're just so gorgeous. I put them in the front of my sci-fi fantasy shelf because I like seeing their spines, and they're just really, really pretty books. I love them to death. Alright, moving on. Last one. For bonus book 3, we have A Touch of Stone and Snow. This is book 2 in the A Gathering of Dragons series by Milla Vane. I reread book 1 and then the prequel novella Beast of Blackmoor for Ferrofab Fantasy Romance February, and then I also read this during February. And now that I think about it, 3 of my 4 bonus books were Ferrofab books, plus our February book, so 4 books on here I read during Ferrofab. But anyway, so this one is book 2. If you haven't read book 1, it is one of my favorite fantasy romances ever. It is so good. I'm highly anticipating book 3. It's been pushed back release date a couple of times, but that's okay. She's making it work. I heard on a podcast that she was on when she did like an author interview that this series, A Gathering of Dragons, she has plans for 6 books, but it's going to be like 3 separate trilogies, so if you only want to read the first 3 or the second 3, at least the main story arc over those will be completed, kind of a thing. But I'm super excited. I can't wait. This is A Touch of Stone and Snow. So we have Arax and Lizen, plus Cade. He's like a sentient snow cat tiger creature, and he's just so, I loved him so much. Cave is just, Cave is one of my favorite characters in this series, but you know, he's a giant snow cat with like crazy fangs and stuff like that. But anyway, I absolutely love this. So Arax is in their kingdom. He's like a prince or part of the royal family, and that's Arax. Lizen and him really connected as childhood friends, and they were very friendly, and they trained together. Lizen is like a women's soldier, and she used to kind of help run a couple of squadrons and things like that. And what ends up happening is she goes into battle, and she's the only one that comes back alive. And they were attacked by creatures that used to exist, and everybody thinks doesn't exist anymore, and they don't believe her. And so Arax kind of shuts her out because he's kind of being pressured by his family to not associate with her, and then she ends up getting banished. Well, things are happening in the world overall, and the big bad is coming back that destroyed the world years before, and so he is out on a diplomacy mission, or he's meeting up with other diplomats that we see kind of get set up in the first book, and he runs into Lizen, and Cave immediately starts following her around because he's like, oh no, it's my friend again. And it's just so, it was just so heart-wrenching because she was so in love with him and he turned his back on her, and there was a lot of guilt that they both needed to work through, and especially on Arax's side. But I loved how when push came to shove in the climax of this book, he did not turn his back on her ever again. And it was just gorgeous. I love Milla Vane's writing. She also writes, she has another name that she writes under. I don't know which one is her pseudonym, but she does like Melanie Brooks? Mel Brooks? No, that's an actor. Melanie Brooks? I don't know. She writes like fantasy steampunk historical-ish books that I super want to read, but I haven't picked up yet. But I really love this series. I really liked the novella Beast of Blackmoor too, so definitely pick that up and you can kind of get a taste for the world. But I definitely recommend reading that after you read the first book, because I feel like the world building is set up a little better in the first book, because you do have the full-length book to kind of get everything established. So, but the novella I think could be read at least as standalone if you want to get a taste of her fantasy writing. But I really enjoyed it. So the last book we have here is my August pick, and this is Alien Tongues by Chloe Parker, and this is book 1 in her Cosmic Bonds series. This is another alien romance. This one was another one that just really blew me away with its uniqueness. So we've got Natalie and Kieran, and Natalie is on Kieran's planet, but she's been tasked, she's a linguist by trade, and so she knows the language of their world, and then she also knows a lot of the old English languages as well, like ancient languages kind of thing. So she's been tasked to studying an ancient artifact and like cultural artifact that they have, and people don't want her to figure out like what it really is. And she gets attacked one night on her way home from work, and then he is tasked to guard her. and the way that they connect is so gorgeous. And I love that, like, there wasn't, like, I like the language barrier sometimes, but I like that wasn't quite a thing. It was more of a cultural barrier, but not necessarily a language barrier, because she could at least communicate with him because she knew the language, and I really loved it. And there's he sneaks into her apartment a couple of times, and they watch old movies. They watch Kiss Me Kate, and then he asks about kissing and what's the point of kissing, because they don't really kiss in their culture unless they're people who go and, like, are on drugs, and kind of, like, it sounds like it's kind of like aphrodisiac kind of a place. And then, you know, so they aren't normally a physical race when it comes to, like, sex and stuff like that. If I remember correctly, sex isn't really, like, that's seen as, like, what lesser beings do, and they do, like, in vitro fertilization mostly, or something like that. But I really enjoyed it. It ended a little abruptly for me. It was, like, really, really good, and then we get back to Earth because things start happening and the attacks on her start escalating, and then it's not just her getting attacked, it's all humans that are in the embassy there on their world, and then they end up escaping, and then she's in the hospital, and then we meet, like, one of her bosses, or one of the people that was, like, a high up in the Earth embassy. We meet his sister, and then we find out that she's gonna go back to this world and try to figure out kind of what happened, and try to recover maybe his body or anything that they can to figure out what exactly happened. And so I know she's the next book, but it ended kind of abruptly, and I wanted a little bit more of the HEA, to experience the HEA, because she's still in the hospital when we leave. It's just like, oh, she's in the hospital back on Earth, so she'll be fine, kind of a thing. But I'm like, but she's in the hospital still. Like, at least let's let her see her get home and take Kieran with her, you know? But anyway, I still really enjoyed it. I definitely want to read more from Chloe Parker. I've seen that she has a couple of other sci-fi romance series, but this was the first book I picked up by her, and I'm definitely intrigued by this story. Plus, I really love the cover. I don't know, this, like, pale green alien skin that they put on a lot of the Saving Baracco by Victoria Aveline has, like, the same kind of color tones, and I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. But so I really love this, but I gotta give it to A Touch of Stone and Stone. There's just something so encompassing in drawing about the way that Noah Vane writes that is an easier win for sure. So we will get this out here, and we are now officially done with round 1. Oh, I feel like this might be a longer one, but I know if it's anything like the other 2 brackets I've filled out, now things will go a little bit quicker now that I've kind of blabbered on about each book. Okay, so there is that. We'll get that centered. Okay, so I want to zoom out. We'll take a look at how our bracket looks right now. So there we go. We are about ready to start our quarterfinals, but before that, I want to say where we are so I have each step saved here in my files. So this will be round 2. We will switch to a TNG. Okay. Alrighty, so that is saving, and then we will move on while that saves. Okay, quarterfinal 1. If you'll let me. There we go. Done thinking. Okay. Here we go. Quarterfinal 1. The Sea King by C.L. Wilson versus A Hunger Like No Other by Kristen Cole. Fantasy versus paranormal. I think I'm gonna give it to A Hunger Like No Other. Yeah, I'm gonna give it to A Hunger Like No Other. I feel like it kept me engaged a little bit more, and that and The Sea King was a little long, but I still really enjoyed it. But it definitely could have used with a little less in there. Okay, so there we go. Hunger Like No Other. Let's move on. Quarterfinal 2. A Kiss for Solstice versus Witches Get Stitches by Juliet Cross. And A Kiss for Solstice is once again Elizabeth Allen Dean. Ooh, this is a hard one. Juliet's one of my favorite authors. These are both werewolf and witch books. Crazy. A Kiss for Solstice just really blew me away. But I feel like the story as a whole was a little tightly packed. Steam was a little bit better. It was just a touch more engaging. I feel like I'm going to give it to Witches Get Stitches. And that might be a little bit of bias, but I love Juliet Cross. And I love her for a reason. Although, I can't emphasize this enough. A Kiss for Solstice. If you're looking for a witch werewolf book that's indie, that you haven't really heard much about, and you want to try something unique, definitely try A Kiss for Solstice. I'm telling ya, it just completely blew me away. Honestly, any of these books are my honorable mentions. Would be a good paranormal, sci-fi, or fantasy book to pick up. But if I could push you towards one that you probably haven't heard of before, A Kiss for Solstice would probably be the one. But let's move on to quarterfinal 3. Ooh, Grace Draven versus Grace Draven. The perfect full-length Friends to Lover or the perfect novella? Ooh, I gotta give it to Radiance. And I'm gonna give it to Radiance because I probably would have never even found or stumbled across the Undying King if it wasn't for Radiance. But honestly, you can read anything by Grace Draven and you'd probably super enjoy it. Okay, we are almost done. Last one, Tempting Ozed by Or A Touch of Stone and Snow. Ooh, this is a hard one. One's sci-fi, one's fantasy. I gave them both 5 stars. I bought them both in paperback. I'm both super excited for the next book in this series. Alright. I just gotta do it. I gotta go with my gut. So here's my thinking. I'm gonna go with Tempting Ozed, because I do think I enjoyed Tempting Ozed a little bit more than A Touch of Stone and Snow. But, if this was book 1 in A Gathering Dragons, A Heart of Blood and Ashes, A Heart of Blood and Ashes probably would beat out Tempting Ozed. I think I'm gonna have to go with Tempting Ozed though. It was just so good. And we got the fake dating trope and the alien romance and sci-fi and it was so interesting. And then they had this like really interesting like Olympic type games competition thing that was super intriguing too. I just really enjoyed it. Okay, there we go. Alrighty. That was quick. Not too bad. That last one threw me for a little bit of a stumper. But there we go. We are done with our quarterfinals. Like I said, super quick. The rest of this should go fairly quickly. Let me just save this as round 3, and then we will move on to our semi-final round. I can't believe we're almost done. Oh no. But then I can just focus on my books for 2022. And this will be it for my favorites. And I'll have the other 2 brackets already filled out. So I just have to edit and upload and post. And we are good. Okay. We are there. We are good. Let's move on. Okay. Semi-final 1. A Hunger Like No Other versus Radiance. I mean, are you surprised by what I just dragged and dropped? I'm not the biggest fan of enemies to lovers, but I've always enjoyed friends to lovers, and Radiance is just so freaking magical. Ugh, look at it, it's so great. Okay. Semi-final 2. Witches Get Stitches versus Tempting Ozad! Oh no! Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Alright. I gotta do it. I gotta do it. Knee-jerk reaction. Let's go. Witches Get Stitches. Oh. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that choice. I don't feel... like, I feel bad for Tempting Ozad because it was really good. But I don't... when I was like, okay, I'm gonna choose Witches Get Stitches, I didn't have that, like, gut reaction of, oh wait, no. It was just like, no, okay, I'm comfortable with this choice. I feel like this is the right choice for me, at least in this moment. So here we go. Witches Get Stitches. Juliet Cross won that semi-final. We will zoom back out. There we go. We are almost there, and my heart is already breaking. My heart is already breaking. How am I supposed to choose between two of my favorite books? Radiance by Grace Draven versus Witches Get Stitches by Juliet Cross. Two of my favorite covers, two of my favorite authors, two of my favorite books of the year. Oh. I don't know. Oh my gosh, this is such a hard choice. Oh my goodness, I don't know if I can handle this. And these are completely different books. They both have gorgeous covers. I bought them both. They're two of my favorite authors. And this would be an even harder choice if that was like Wolf Gone Wild. because I love all of the books. But Wolf Gone Wild has hit me in my soul the most. Okay. Based on that thinking, I'm gonna give it to Radiance. Oh, I'm gonna give it to Radiance. It's all wrong. I don't know. And one's fantasy and one's paranormal. Can I do Radiance, Witches Get Stitches, and Tempting Ozad? And then that'd be my fantasy, paranormal, and sci-fi. Why did I combine the three? All three of these are the winners. Oh no! Oh my gosh, what did I do to myself? Alright. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do it. And this does not diminish my love for Juliet Cross at all. I'm saying that. But part of the reason I'm also going for Grace Draven is because she was a new to me author this year. And I just was so utterly captivated by her writing style and her world building and her storytelling that she quickly became a new favorite author of mine, along with Juliet Cross. But Juliet Cross was already a favorite author of mine. Yeah, I gotta give it to Radiance. I do. I feel comfortable with this. Okay, so I'm gonna save it. And isn't it absolutely gorgeous? Oh, it's so pretty. Okay, we'll save it, and then I'll zoom out, and then we will close it up here. Yeah. But like I said, if I had separated these three, those would probably be the three winners. Radiance for fantasy, Witches Get Stitches for paranormal, and Tempting Ozets for sci-fi. But I combined the three because I needed to be able to have 16 options without them all being in like February reads for fantasy. So here we go. It is final, it is complete, it is saved. No more changes. The winner of my best paranormal, sci-fi, and fantasy romance reads of 2021 is Radiance by Grace Draven. Brishan and Ildiko. They both live rent-free in my head and will forever. And things that they go through and the way that their relationship goes stronger. Yeah, I'm okay with this being my favorite book. Because I also sit with these characters for longer, and while we see Nico and Violet in the background of the other books, we get Brishan and Ildiko for a full 2 books with them. And I'm not really thinking about what happens in Eidolon. But it all starts in Radiance, and it's just, their meet cute is so great, because it's on their wedding day, and they're both kind of walking the gardens at the estate where they're getting married, and they don't realize, like, that the other one is their soon-to-be wife or husband, and they kind of have a very frank conversation about what humans think of whatever Brishan's race is, and what he thinks of humans. And it's just a very frank but very touching and funny conversation. And then they both kind of separate, and they both do mention that they're both there for the wedding, but they don't say that they're the one getting married, kind of a thing. And then he decides, because of the discussion, she brings up, it would have been nice to at least meet him beforehand, so I know I'm not just getting married to a monster, and that they're going to treat me horribly, kind of a thing. And he ends up going to meet her before the ceremony to do just that. And then they find out that it was the person that they were talking to in the garden, and just because they had such a frank and open conversation there, their relationship started out on the best possible foot that it could have in this situation, and just blossomed from there. I really kind of want to reread it now. Maybe you'll see me do that come February, if I need another fantasy romance to pick up for my Pharaoh Fed bingo boards. But anyway, okay, I'll wrap it up here. I'll stop rambling. So my winner was Radiance. So congratulations to Grace Draven and Radiance and Ildiko and Brishan. And congratulations to, honestly, all of the books that I read and put on this bracket, and our 3 honorable mentions for being such amazing writers and books. And I just thank you for making 2021 such a wonderful reading experience. This has been one of my best reading years, and I don't know how long. I had compared to before, my percentages had very little 3, 2, and 2-star ratings, and most of the books I read were 4 and 5-star reads. And part of that is I've been more active in the book community on BookTube and Bookstagram and things like that. So, and I'm being more mindful of the books that I pick up. But dang, some of these authors are just so good that you just can't help it but fall in love with them and their characters. So thank you so much for watching this, and if you did, for watching my other 2 videos. I hope your 2021 brought some really amazing reads for you as well. If you haven't read any of these books and any of them sounded interesting, please, I couldn't urge you enough to pick them up. If you want to learn more about any of the books, I have either the genres or the authors. Both are tagged for each of my reviews, and then most of these books are 4 or 5 stars as well, so you can also check those tags in my cloud word, or my word cloud over here in the sidebar. But also feel free to reach out to me on any of my socials, and if you want more information about any of these books or read them and want to gush about them with me, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to have new book friends. But thank you so much for watching and reading and joining me on this 2021 reading journey, and I will see you all soon. Bye!